The weeks after the Light Festival felt unreal, like someone had quietly lifted the weight of the past off their shoulders and replaced it with something softer, warmer, deceptively peaceful. Maya still woke up some mornings thinking it had all been a dream. Ethan's hand in hers under the fireworks. Aiden cheering between them. The ring slipped onto her finger with trembling fingers that didn't match the reputation of the cold, brilliant CEO of Cole Enterprises. But there it was, on her hand, simple, elegant, unmistakably Ethan. Their new house sat on a quiet hill overlooking the San Francisco Bay, a place that somehow managed to feel large enough for Ethan's world, yet intimate enough for Maya's. It wasn't the Cole mansion with its marble floors and echoing hallways. It was a home. Their home. Aiden loved it immediately. Ethan maybe even more. Most mornings, Maya woke to the sound of father and son laughing downstairs. Ethan trying to teach Aiden how to flip pancakes without destroying the kitchen. Most attempts failed spectacularly. Aiden called it daddy explosions. Ethan pretended to be offended every time. Then they'd eat breakfast together, sunlight washing through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Aiden would chatter about school, his new friends, the boy he raced at recess, the teacher who wore silly socks on Tuesdays. Maya listened, smiling. Ethan listened, like someone learning what joy tasted like for the first time. Ethan started going to work late, started coming home early, started leaving his phone in another room whenever he was with them. He never said it aloud, but Maya saw the shift in his eyes, this quiet hunger to keep what he'd finally found. To keep them. Maya's design studio came to life in the renovated garage behind the house. White walls, long tables, fabrics stacked neatly, and her sketches pinned on boards, like fragments of dreams waiting to be finished. Ethan helped set it up, installing lights, carrying boxes, ordering equipment, but he never interfered. Never told her what to design. Never treated it like a hobby she'd drop once they married. He simply supported her quietly, the way someone supports an equal. Sometimes he stood in the doorway while she worked, arms folded, leaning on the frame with a half smile he only wore for her. "Do you like it?" she'd ask, self-conscious. "I love you when you're like this." He'd reply, almost shy beneath the certainty. Focused, free, doing what you were born to do. And her heart would swell so hard she had to look away. The engagement came naturally, like inhaling after holding your breath too long. They didn't throw a gala, didn't announce it to the world. Instead, they planned the kind of wedding Maya had never thought she'd have: small private sunlight and sea breeze with Aiden carrying the rings and smiling like he'd invented happiness. Everything felt right. Everything felt earned. Which was why the unease creeping in at the edges felt all the more jarring. It began with Nicholas. He had recovered well after months of treatment. Physically, at least. When he first returned, he spent long hours at the dining table, teaching Aiden chess, or letting the boy braid his hair with tiny plastic clips Maya bought as a joke. He smiled often, a tired but genuine smile of a man grateful to still breathe. But at night, the shadows in his eyes deepened. Sometimes Maya found him awake at 2 a.m, sitting in the dimly lit living room, with a blanket draped over his shoulders, staring at nothing, as if listening to echoes only he could hear. Other nights he stood on the balcony outside his room, hands gripping the railing, gaze pinned to the horizon, as if expecting something terrible to emerge from the darkness. He always pretended he was fine. But Maya knew better. She had learned to read the tremors beneath silence. One night she found him outside again. The wind swept across the bay, cool and quiet. Nicholas didn't turn when she stepped beside him, though his shoulders eased slightly, as if her presence grounded him. "You're awake," Maya said softly. "So are you," he replied. Maya hesitated. Nightmares. Nicholas let out a brittle laugh. I don't sleep long enough to have them. She touched the railing beside his hand, not quite touching him, but close enough. He exhaled. The fire, he whispered. It still follows me. Her breath caught. Nicholas turned to her slowly, his face carved with lines of guilt and fear. Maya had never seen so starkly. Lua không tu bung lin, he said, reverting to the Vietnamese he sometimes used with her, maybe because it felt safer. Fire doesn't start by itself. Maya felt a chill. Nicholas swallowed hard. Someone wanted me gone. Someone wanted Aiden gone. That night wasn't an accident. It was a message. Her skin prickled with goosebumps. Do you know who she asked? He didn't answer immediately, his jaw-clenched eyes narrowing as if replaying memories he wished he could forget. Finally he spoke, slowly, coldly. I have suspicions, but I need proof, and I need to know if they're still watching. Watching. Who? Nicholas turned fully now, eyes dark and sharp, like a man who had walked through hell and come back only half alive. You, he said, and Aiden, a breath she didn't know she was holding, left her in a thin, shaky stream. Nicholas. He forced a gentle smile. Don't tell Ethan yet. He deserves peace, even if just for a little more. I'll find the truth first. But she saw beneath the smile, saw the fear. He hid the urgency. He swallowed the determination that bordered on desperation. Something was wrong. Very wrong. And whatever it was, Nicholas intended to face it alone. Morning came with the smell of cinnamon and coffee drifting through the house. Aiden was in the kitchen giggling as Ethan pretended to burn toast on purpose. Mommy, Daddy's cooking is dangerous, Aiden called. Lethal, Ethan corrected, flipping a pancake with exaggerated flair. Your mother's the brave one for eating it. Maya laughed, but something pulled at her chest. Nicholas hadn't joined them yet. She checked the balcony. Empty. His room. Empty. Backyard. Empty. Her heart tightened. A faint unease trickled down her spine as she walked into Nicholas's room, again slower this time, noticing details she had ignored before. The blanket folded too neatly. The cup on the table emptied and washed. His books stacked an intentional farewell. And then she saw it. A small photograph lying on the bed, burnt around the edges, warped from heat, barely recognizable except for one thing, Patricia Cole's face in the center, her eyes half erased by smoke marks. Maya's blood ran cold. Her hands trembled as she lifted the photo. Something scribbled on the back caught her attention. 2 words, written in Nicholas's rushed handwriting. Not her. Her vision blurred for a moment. Not from fear, but from a crushing realization Nicholas hadn't fled. He had gone to confront something. Someone. Someone far more dangerous than Patricia. Someone still out there. Footsteps approached behind her. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed loosely. A soft smile on his face, the kind he reserved only for early mornings and the 2 people he loved. Breakfast is ready, he said. What are you doing in? His voice stopped. Maya turned the burned photo, shaking in her hand. Ethan's expression changed instantly, darkening, sharpening, shifting from playful to alert in the span of a heartbeat. Maya, he said carefully, stepping forward. What happened? She gave him the photo. His jaw locked. Ethan wasn't a man easily shaken. He'd handled boardroom betrayals, corporate espionage, assassination attempts. He had survived a childhood that would have broken lesser men. But this burned photo of his stepmother in Nicholas's room sent something primal flickering across his face. A memory. A warning. A threat resurfacing. "Where's Nicholas?" Ethan asked, voice low. "Dangerous." "He's gone," Maya whispered. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush air. Ethan closed his eyes for a single breath, 1 second of grief, of fear, of calculation, and when he opened them, they were steel. "Don't worry," he said, cupping her cheek with a gentleness that contradicted the storm in his eyes. "I won't let anything touch you. Or Aiden." Maya leaned into his palm, heart breaking a little at the weight he carried, always alone, always for others. "But Ethan," she breathed, "someone already has." He froze, and she knew he understood. This wasn't about Patricia. This wasn't about the past. This was a warning, a new shadow, a new enemy. And Nicholas had gone to face them by himself. The calm was gone. A storm was coming. And this time, it wasn't the Cole family against the world. It was the world against their family. Rain rolled in, the next morning, the kind that blurred the horizon and made the world look like a watercolor left out in the storm. Maya watched the gray curtain through the window while the kettle hissed behind her, but her thoughts weren't on tea. They were on Nicholas, on the burned photograph, on the words, "Not her," on the fear she'd seen in his eyes before he vanished. A hand slid around her waist from behind, warm and steady, pulling her gently against a familiar chest. Ethan rested his chin on her shoulder, breathing her in. "You're up early," he murmured, voice rough from sleep. "So are you," she whispered back. "I woke up and you weren't there." He didn't say the rest, but she heard it anyway, and I panicked. Her fingers brushed his forearm. "I'm okay." "You will be," Ethan corrected softly, "because I'm not letting anything happen to you." The kettle clicked off, the kitchen filled with silence too heavy to swallow. By noon, Ethan's entire security team had mobilized. Drones scanning the cliffs, unmarked SUVs patrolling the neighborhood, his chief of security stationed at the front gate. Ethan stood in his office with a map spread across the desk, locations marked in red, yellow, black search radiuses, expanding outward like ripples from a sinking stone. Maya stepped in quietly. "Any updates?" she asked. He didn't turn around. Nothing yet. There was a stiffness to his voice she had only heard once when Aiden had been kidnapped. The voice of a man who was one heartbeat away from losing control. Maya walked closer, placing her hand on his back. He tensed, not at her touch, but at everything he couldn't control. "Ethan." He exhaled, finally turning to face her. His eyes were darker today, stormy, the softness of morning replaced by a sharp edge. "I'm trying to keep you both safe," he said quietly. "But every second Nicholas is missing. I feel like I'm failing him." Again, she shook her head. "You're not responsible for what happened." His jaw tightened. "I knew someone wanted him gone. I should have pushed harder, looked deeper. Now." He stopped. "Now he's gone again," hung in the air. Maya slid her hands up to cup his face, forcing him to meet her gaze. "We'll find him. You're not fighting this alone anymore." For a moment, Ethan leaned into her palms, as if letting her carry part of the weight. Then he kissed her forehead, slow and lingering. "I need to keep you safe," he murmured. "That's the only thing that matters." The email arrived at 2:17 p.m. Maya had stepped outside with a cup of herbal tea, hoping the cool wind would steady her nerves. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down absently and froze. Unknown sender. Subject: a warning. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The one who set the fire is still free. They know Nicholas is gone, and this time, their target is you. The tea slipped from her grip, shattering across the wooden deck. Her breath hitched, sharp, cold, almost painful. Ethan was instantly at her side, catching her before she could sway. His eyes landed on the phone in her hand on the email, and something violent flashed across his face. He grabbed the device, scanning every word, then swore under his breath, quiet, lethal. "No more," he said, voice trembling with controlled fury. "You're not going to work. Not leaving this house without protection. Not for a single second. Ethan." He pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. "You were supposed to be safe," he whispered, the words cracking. "I promised you that." She clutched his shirt, trying not to let the fear swallow her. "I'm okay," Maya whispered. "You're not." "Ethan," said voice thick. "Whoever sent this knows exactly how to break me." Her heart clenched. "Ethan." He pulled back enough to look at her. "I'm doubling security," he said. "New passcodes, new system. Someone will be with you at all times. Aiden will never walk anywhere without protection. Is that really necessary?" Ethan laughed, once broken. "Necessary, Maya. Someone warned you directly. They're watching, waiting. I'm not giving them a chance." She wasn't afraid of the precautions. She was afraid of what it meant. Someone out there didn't just want to hurt Nicholas anymore. They wanted her. And that meant they wanted Ethan to suffer. Aiden sensed the tension immediately. "Mommy, why's Daddy talking to so many people?" he asked while building a block tower in the living room. Maya knelt beside him, smoothing his hair. "Just work things, sweetheart." "Are you scared?" The question pierced her. Before she could answer, Ethan appeared in the doorway with a gentle smile that didn't reach his eyes. "No one's scared," he said, kneeling beside them. "I'm just making sure nothing bad comes near our family." Aiden nodded solemnly, trusting innocent. Maya's heart ached. She placed her hand on Ethan's knee, squeezing softly. It was a silent pact. "We face this together." Ethan covered her hand with his thumb, brushing her knuckles. A silent vow. "No, I face this, so you don't have to." By evening, Ethan had called his private investigator, Caleb Monroe, a man with an unsettling calmness in his eyes and a reputation for uncovering secrets people wanted buried. Caleb arrived with a folder so thick it looked like it should belong in an archive. "I followed the trail you asked me to," Caleb said, placing it on the table. "And you're not going to like what I found." Ethan didn't sit, just crossed his arms, bracing. Caleb opened the folder. 3 things stand out about the night of the fire. Maya stepped closer. First, Caleb said, flipping to a photo, Marcus Hale, the family's lawyer, was the last person seen entering the hospital before it burned. Maya's stomach dropped. Second, he continued, showing another image. The camera outside the maternity wing was deliberately smashed 10 minutes before the fire started. "And Nicholas escaped through that wing," Ethan said darkly. Caleb nodded. "Exactly." And third, Caleb said, placing a printed bank statement on the table. "This, a large transfer from the Cole Family Emergency Fund, approved by Patricia Cole." Maya felt Ethan still beside her, like every muscle had locked at once. Caleb continued. "This amount, $2 million, was moved the day after the fire. Your mother-in-law might know more than she's saying." Maya glanced at Ethan. He looked betrayed and deeply, deeply afraid. Not for himself, for them. "I need to talk to her," he said, voice steady but shaking underneath. Maya caught his arm. "Ethan, wait." He didn't. He couldn't. He left the room with long, determined strides. She followed. Patricia Cole lived in a penthouse overlooking the city, sleek, cold, immaculate, like the woman herself. She opened the door with one raised brow. "Ethan, to what do I owe this pleasure?" He stepped inside. No greeting, no warmth. "What did you do?" he said. The night the hospital burned. Patricia's expression didn't change. "Come now," she murmured, crossing the room with a graceful glide. "Is this about Nicholas again? I told you Maya got a threat today," Ethan said, cutting her off. "Maya. Not Nicholas. Not me. Maya." Patricia paused, just for a fraction of a second. But Ethan saw it. Maya saw it. Something in Patricia cracked. Not guilt, not fear. Something like resignation. "What were you doing?" Ethan repeated the night the hospital burned. Patricia finally turned her eyes colder than the marble floors. "Protecting this family," she said, from a truth that should have stayed buried. The air thinned. Maya felt her pulse thunder. Ethan stared at her, horror spreading slowly across his face. "Mother," he whispered, "what did you do?" Patricia didn't answer. She didn't need to. In that silence, Maya realized whatever truth Patricia had buried 6 years ago, whatever she had tried to erase with fire, it was rising again. And Nicholas had gone missing to reveal it. The storm that had begun to gather in part 1 now cracked open full force. And the people they least expected were standing right in the center of it. Twilight had settled over the bay when Maya locked up the studio and walked toward her car. The air smelled of paint rain and the faint sweetness of eucalyptus drifting down from the hillside. A normal evening, quiet calm, almost peaceful, until she noticed the door. The deadbolt hung, crooked, splintered at the hinges. The frame bore the unmistakable marks of a crowbar. Her breath hitched, freezing halfway in her chest. She pushed the door open with trembling fingers. Her studio, her sanctuary of colors and fabrics, was untouched. Not a spool of thread out of place. Not a design stolen. Nothing damaged. Except for one thing. Her heart stopped. On her main work table lay a photo. One she hadn't seen in months. The picture Ethan took on their first trip to the coast. Aiden on her shoulders. Ethan behind them, with his arm wrapped around her waist. The three of them laughing, sunlit, carefree. But now, the photo was torn in two, brutally, violently. Ethan and Aiden remained in one half. The half with her had been ripped out entirely. Whoever did this hadn't come to steal. They had come to send a message. Her knees weakened. She grabbed the table for support, her breath turning sharp, shallow. Then her phone buzzed. "Ethan." "Maya, you're still at the studio." She swallowed. Her voice barely made it out. "Ethan." Someone broke in. There was a heartbeat of silence. Then a sound she'd never heard from him before, horror. "Stay where you are. I'm coming." He arrived in 6 minutes. Not 12. Not 10:06. Ethan practically sprinted inside hair windswept chest, rising and falling as if he'd run the whole way. The moment he saw her standing frozen by the torn photograph, something shattered in him. He pulled her into his arms so fast she gasped. "Maya, God, are you hurt? Did they touch you? Did anyone?" She shook her head against his chest. "I'm okay. I wasn't here when it happened." Relief hit him so hard, he had to steady himself on the table. His arms tightened around her fingers, digging into her back like he needed proof she was real, alive, warm. But what stunned her most wasn't the desperation in his embrace. It was the tremor. Ethan Cole was shaking. She slowly lifted her head. His jaw was clenched so hard a muscle pulsed beneath his skin. His eyes, normally steady, calculating, were wild with something rawer than fear. Something deeper. "Ethan, you're trembling." Her voice was barely a whisper. He didn't deny it. He just looked at this torn photo. And everything inside him broke open. This family, he rasped. This name. This curse. I lost my father to it. I lost myself to it. And I will not. His breath cracked. I will not lose you. Maya stepped closer, placing her palm against his cheek. He leaned into her touch like a man starved for gentleness. There was cold sweat on his temple. She brushed it away with her thumb. Ethan, she murmured, I'm right here. His eyes fluttered shut, and his voice lowered to something almost unrecognizable. A confession carved straight out of his soul. You make me weak, he whispered. Do you know that? Her chest tightened. You make me care in ways I never let myself. You make me afraid in ways nothing else ever could. He opened his eyes again, raw, exposed, vulnerable. And that terrifies me, Maya. More than any enemy. More than any fire. Because if something happened to you... His voice broke. I wouldn't survive it. Her breath trembled at the edges. She had seen him powerful, angry, tender, protective, but never like this. Never unguarded. Never fragile. She slid her hands to the back of his neck and pulled him down until their foreheads touched. You don't have to protect me from everything, she whispered. Not anymore. His hands tightened on her waist, as if she were the only solid thing he could hold on to. I don't know how else to love, he murmured. Everything I care about, I've had to fight for. Or I've lost. Then let me fight with you. Her voice trembled, but with resolve. Don't shut me out of this, Ethan. Don't face danger alone and pretend it's strength. You promised I wasn't alone. Don't make yourself alone either. Silence stretched between them. A thick, aching silence. Then slowly, Ethan lifted his head. His eyes searched hers, as if trying to decide whether he had the right to let her in, to share the shadows he'd carried for decades. And then, he nodded. Not curt, not reluctant, but with a quiet surrender. All right, he said softly. You fight with me. Relief washed through her so powerfully, she exhaled shakily. Ethan pulled her into his arms again, this time slower, steadier, but no less desperate. She felt his heartbeat against her ribs, fast and uneven, like the confession had torn him open in ways he wasn't used to. When he pulled back, his hands lingered on her face, tracing the line of her cheek, the curve of her jaw, the way someone memorizes something precious. We're going home, he said quietly. But the studio. I'll send a team to sweep it. I'm not letting you stay here another second. She didn't argue. Outside, security cars had already arrived, headlights flashing across the pavement. Ethan placed a hand on her back, guiding her gently but firmly to his waiting SUV. He never stopped touching her. Hand on her back, hand twined with hers, hand on her thigh as he drove, thumb stroking circles on her skin, small, soothing, unconscious. But his eyes never left the road, never stopped scanning the mirrors, never softened from the storm swirling inside them. Halfway home, Maya reached over and took his hand in both of hers. You don't have to be afraid of losing me, she said softly. He didn't answer at first. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible over the hum of the engine. I already am, he whispered. And that's the problem. Her breath caught. Maya, he said, eyes locked on the road, but voice cracked open. I thought I could handle anything, as long as Aiden was safe. But tonight, when you didn't answer your phone fast enough, I swear, I felt like the ground disappeared under me. She squeezed his hand. You're not losing me, she said. Not now. Not ever. His jaw clenched, but not with fear this time, with something fierce and determined. When they reached the driveway, Ethan turned off the engine, but didn't move, didn't open the door, just sat there in the dim glow of the dashboard lights, staring at their intertwined hands. Maya, he said quietly. Whoever is doing this. They crossed a line. She nodded. Then we crossed the line back. His eyes lifted. And for the first time tonight, she saw something shift in them. Not fear, not fury, but resolve. A vow. He leaned forward and pressed his forehead to hers, closing his eyes. We fight together, he said. Yes. And you don't walk anywhere alone. Fine. And you sleep beside me, every night. Her breath hitched. Ethan. He opened his eyes. Not because I'm afraid of the dark, he murmured, brushing a thumb along her cheekbone, but because I breathe easier when you're there. Her heart stuttered. Once. Twice. She whispered, then I'm not going anywhere. He kissed her slow, aching, full of everything he couldn't say. Fear, love, desperation, promise, and beneath it all a storm gathering. Because someone had crossed the first line, and Ethan Cole would burn down the world before letting them take another step toward the woman he loved. The call came just after dawn. Ethan had barely slept. He'd spent the night pacing the bedroom, checking the security feed, returning every few minutes to make sure Maya was still beside him. She had fallen asleep curled against his chest sometime after 3, his arm locked protectively around her waist. When his phone buzzed at 6:12 a.m., he answered before the second ring. Mr. Cole, the voice said, rushed, breathless. We found him. Ethan's entire body went still. Nicholas. Yes, sir. Alive. Barely. At a construction site outside the city. You need to come now. They arrived 20 minutes later. Maya hadn't even changed out of her oversized sweater and jeans. She refused to stay home despite Ethan's insistence. I'm coming, she'd said, voice steady. He's family. He didn't argue, not after the way she'd held him at the studio the night before, grounding him when he was unraveling. Now she stood beside him in the icy morning wind, staring at the cluster of police cars surrounding a half-built office tower. The steel beams rose like bones against a gray sky. An officer led them through caution tape toward a makeshift medical tent at the base of the site. Nicholas lay inside. Maya's breath faltered at the sight. He was barely recognizable face, bruised lip, split, one eye, swollen shut, clothes stained with dried blood and dust. Tubes and monitors beeped beside him in a jagged rhythm that didn't match the calm she remembered in him. Ethan stepped forward first, shoulders, rigid, fists clenched so tight the knuckles blanched. Nicholas, he whispered, voice cracking in a way Maya had never heard. God, what did they do to you? Nicholas stirred. The medic said. He regained consciousness briefly. He's been asking for both of you. Maya knelt beside the bed, taking Nicholas's bruised hand gently in both of hers. His skin burned with fever. Nicholas, she said softly, we're here. His remaining eye fluttered open. It took him a moment to focus. When he finally recognized them, relief swept across his battered features like a tide. Maya. His voice was barely audible, scraped raw from pain. Ethan. Ethan leaned close, careful not to touch anything that might hurt him. Don't speak. Save your strength. Nicholas shook his head weakly. No. You need to know. He swallowed hard, breath hitching. Patricia. She didn't start the fire. Maya felt Ethan's entire body tense beside her. Nicholas continued coughing through the words. She was manipulated, just like I was. Ethan's jaw tightened. By who? Nicholas's answer came like a blade. Marcus. The name dropped into the air like poison. Maya felt a chill ripple down her spine. Ethan looked as if someone had slammed a fist into his ribs. Marcus Hale. Ethan asked, disbelief and betrayal warring in his voice. He's been with the family 25 years. Nicholas nodded weakly. 25 years. Too long. Long enough to learn every secret. Long enough to build his own empire in the shadows. Long enough to hide behind our name. Maya swallowed, her voice barely steady. What did he do? Nicholas closed his eyes for a second, gathering strength. Years ago, I discovered irregularities in the Cole Foundation accounts. Millions siphoned. Money moved offshore. A pause. Shallow breaths. I confronted Marcus, told him I would expose everything, turn the evidence over to federal investigators. Maya felt Ethan stiffen beside her. Why didn't you come to me? Nicholas met his gaze with pain-filled regret. You were young. I didn't want you dragged into it. Ethan shook his head, devastated. Nicholas continued. When Marcus learned I had proof, he panicked. I disappeared for a few weeks trying to decide how to protect the family while exposing him. His breath shuddered. And then, Maya found my son. Maya felt her chest tighten. Nicholas looked at her. Despite the swelling, his gaze was soft. I left Aiden at the hospital to keep him safe. I planned to return for him. But Marcus found out about the baby. His voice cracked. He ordered the fire. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Nicholas's next words trembled with anguish. He wanted to erase everything that tied me to that evidence, my child, the records, me. A tear slipped from the corner of his good eye. He didn't expect you to survive the fire with Aiden. He didn't expect you. Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes. Ethan looked like he might explode. Rage, grief, disbelief, every emotion a man could feel when realizing the person he trusted most had tried to destroy his family. Then Nicholas spoke again, voice fading. Patricia was a scapegoat. Marcus manipulated her, fed her lies about me. She thought she was protecting you, Ethan. Ethan blinked, stunned. She... What? Nicholas nodded. And Lucas? A long, painful pause. He wasn't just loyal to Marcus. Marcus raised him, molded him. He wanted Lucas to inherit the empire after destroying the rightful heirs. Ethan swore under his breath, stepping back as if the ground beneath him had cracked open. Maya reached for his hand. He took it immediately, not gently, not forcefully, but desperately, like she was the only thing keeping him anchored. And you, Nicholas whispered, looking at Maya again, saved Aiden. Twice, without even knowing who he was. Her throat tightened. I couldn't leave him. I know. Nicholas's lips trembled into a faint, broken smile. That's why he loves you. Why he chose you. Ethan moved back to Nicholas's side, eyes burning. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Ethan whispered, voice thick. Nicholas's hand lifted slightly, weak, trembling, to grasp his nephew's wrist. Because I wanted to protect you, he breathed. From Marcus. From this darkness. A pause. But I failed. And now it's on you. Ethan leaned closer, gripping Nicholas's hand as gently as he could. No, you haven't failed. But I promise you this ends now. Nicholas's gaze drifted to Maya. With her. You have a chance, he said, to break the cycle, to build something good, something real. Maya's eyes filled. She squeezed Ethan's hand. Nicholas exhaled shakily, his voice barely above a sigh. I'm sorry. For everything. His head fell back on the pillow, exhaustion sweeping him under. The medic stepped in immediately, checking his vitals. "He needs rest," the medic said. "Let him sleep." Ethan didn't move for a long moment. He stared at Nicholas, the man who had carried the truth alone for years, who had protected Aiden at a devastating cost. Then Ethan turned toward Maya. His expression was no longer simply anger or shock. It was something deeper, something fierce, purpose. He took both her hands, lifting them to his chest, pressing them over his racing heart. "Maya," he said, voice low and unshakable. "I swear to you, this ends with me. I'll finish what Nicholas started, and I will make sure Aiden never grows up in the shadows that raised me." Maya felt her breath catch at the intensity in his eyes, at the love, yes, love burning through the fury. She stepped closer, resting her forehead against his. "We'll do it together," she whispered. Ethan's hands slid around her waist, pulling her into him as if she were the one thing in the world Marcus Hale could never touch. "For him," Maya said softly. "For Aiden. For us," Ethan added, voice shaking with conviction. Outside the tent, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and steel and something darker. But inside, the three of them stood at the edge of a new truth, one that would shatter what remained of the Cole family's legacy. And finally, the real enemy had a name. It happened on a Thursday, the kind of bright, quiet morning that lulls people into believing the world is safe. The kind where birds chatter on rooftops and sunlight pools warmly on kitchen tiles. Maya was pouring orange juice for Aiden when Ethan called out from the living room. "Bus is here!" Aiden slung his backpack over one shoulder, kissed Maya's cheek dramatically. "For luck," Mommy, and sprinted out the door. Ethan followed him to the driveway, watched him get into the van, then came back inside for one last cup of coffee before heading out to work. Everything felt normal, perfect even, until Maya's phone rang 2 hours later. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. "Hello." A woman's voice, breathless. "Mrs. Lane." "It's Mrs. Carter, Aiden's teacher." Maya's stomach tightened. "Yes. Is something wrong?" There was a pause. Too long. Too heavy. "Maya, Aiden didn't come to school today." The room spun. "What?" No. Ethan put him on the bus himself. The driver reported he never arrived. Maya's heart punched upward into her throat. "That's not possible," she whispered, grabbing the counter for balance. He got on the van. We saw him." Her hands shook. Her pulse roared in her ears. "Maya," the teacher said gently, "should I call the police?" But Maya couldn't hear anything. Couldn't breathe. Her baby. Missing. Her body reacted before her mind could keep up. She grabbed her keys. Her bag bolted out the front door and collided with Ethan. He caught her arms instinctively. "Maya, what happened?" "You're pale." She looked up at him. "Ethan, Aiden never got to school." His face went dead white. "What?" "He's gone." The sound Ethan made wasn't human. It was something deeper, raw, primal, a father's soul tearing open. In the next breath, he was inside the house, barking orders to security, his voice echoing through the hallways like thunder. "Pull the footage now. Maya, stay with me. Lock the house. Full perimeter. Get every camera from the school. Every angle." Maya tried to breathe, tried not to collapse. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Ethan held her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. "We are going to find him," he said, voice trembling despite the steel behind it. "I swear to you, we will find him." His phone buzzed. Security footage. They both stared at the screen as the video played. Aiden stepping off the bus. A tall man in a black suit waving at him. Aiden hesitating, then smiling, because the man looked exactly like one of Ethan's security guards. Same uniform, same badge, same walk. The man took his hand, led him to a black car. Aiden didn't struggle, didn't scream. He trusted him. The car drove off. Maya made a small broken sound. Then the timestamp on the footage flickered to a new scene. The same car pulling into an underground garage. Ethan's blood froze. "That's Cole Enterprises," he whispered. Maya covered her mouth. "Ethan." He didn't wait. He sprinted out the door, issuing commands as he ran. Full lockdown at headquarters. No one enters or leaves. Sweep every level. Maya ran after him, but he spun around, gripping her arms. "No, you're not coming." She shook her head, tears burning her eyes. "You can't stop me." "Maya, I'm coming." Her voice cracked, but didn't break. "He's our son." And Ethan, for all his fury, for all his fear, couldn't argue with that. They took separate cars. Ethan's driver pushed the engine to its limits. Maya's hands trembled the entire way, gripping the seat so hard her nails dug into the leather. Her mind raced. "Please be okay, baby. Please hold on. Mommy's coming." Her chest hurt. Her breath came in shards. Every second felt like a century. When the building came into view, towering glass-cold steel, Maya felt her heart crack open. Something sinister hung in the air, as if the building itself were holding its breath. Security met them at the entrance. Mr. Cole, the boy, was seen on level B2. Old archive room. Ethan didn't wait for the elevator. He ran to the emergency stairwell and flew down the steps, 2-3 at a time. Maya followed, lungs burning, legs screaming fear, propelling her faster than she thought possible. B2 was dim, abandoned years ago. The hallway flickered under failing fluorescent lights. Ethan reached the old archive door. Locked. Then a voice from the shadows. "I wouldn't break it if I were you." Lucas stepped forward, hands in his pockets, a twisted smirk carved across his face. Maya's blood iced. Ethan's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "Where is he?" Lucas tilted his head toward the door. "In there. Safe. For now." Maya lunged forward, but Ethan threw his arm out, blocking her. Lucas chuckled. "You really think I'd hurt the kid?" "Relax. I just wanted a little clarity." His eyes gleamed with something unhinged. "To see if he's really a Cole." Ethan didn't hesitate. He slammed Lucas against the wall so hard the frame cracked behind him. "Give me the key," Ethan demanded. Lucas grinned, showing teeth. "Make me." The fight exploded instantly. Ethan swung first, rage-fueled, vicious. Lucas ducked, retaliating with a punch to Ethan's ribs. Ethan didn't flinch. He lunged, tackling Lucas to the ground. They crashed into a metal shelf, sending files raining onto the floor. Maya screamed Ethan, but he didn't hear her. The two men were a blur. Fists, blood shouts echoing down the concrete corridor. "You had everything," Lucas roared. "Family, money, respect." He threw a punch, wild, desperate. Ethan blocked it with his forearm, grabbed Lucas by the collar, and slammed him against the cabinet. "You tried to hurt Aiden." Ethan growled. "That's the only thing you need to know." Lucas spat blood. "You took everything from me. Even the girl." His eyes flicked to Maya, manic. "You think she loves you? You think she won't leave when Ethan didn't let him finish?" He punched him square in the jaw. Lucas fell to his knees, laughing hysterically through the blood dripping down his chin. "You don't get it," he gasped. "Marcus is the one in control, not me, not you." Then, smiling through cracked lips, "He's the king, Ethan. and you're already checkmated." Ethan didn't spare another second. He grabbed the keys from Lucas's pocket and sprinted to the door. Maya was already there, pounding her fists against the metal. "Aiden," she cried. "Baby mommy's here." Ethan shoved the key into the lock. The moment the door opened, Maya rushed inside and found Aiden curled up in the corner, trembling but unharmed. "Mommy," he sobbed. She gathered him into her arms, collapsing around him, covering his face with frantic kisses. "Oh God, you're okay. You're okay." Aiden clung to her neck, shaking. "Mommy," he said, "Daddy was going to take me away." "No," Maya whispered fiercely, heartbreaking. "No one is taking you away. Ever." Ethan stood beside them, breath uneven, eyes shining with something wet, pain relief, rage all tangled. Aiden looked up at him. "Daddy," he whispered, and Ethan knelt instantly, pulling both of them into a desperate, trembling embrace. They stayed like that for a long moment, a family holding on to each other in the ruins of something meant to destroy them. When security finally dragged Lucas away, he was still smiling. "I hope you're ready," Lucas called out, voice echoing down the corridor. "Because Marcus is coming for all of you." Maya tightened her grip on Aiden. Ethan rose to his feet, jaw clenched with resolve. "This ends now," he said quietly. And for the first time since the nightmare began, Maya believed him. The city felt colder after Lucas's arrest. Even the air seemed thinner, like New York itself knew something had shifted, something dangerous had been set free. Marcus Hale had vanished. Vanished as if he'd evaporated into the cracks of the city. No credit card activity, no phone signal, no witnesses. Ethan's investigators were scraping every street camera in Manhattan, and still they found nothing. People didn't disappear that cleanly unless they were planning something, and Marcus always planned. 3 days after Aiden's kidnapping, Maya woke early and stepped onto the porch to watch the sunrise. For a brief moment, she let herself believe it was over, that Lucas's arrest would shake out the truth that the worst had passed. Then she saw the envelope, lying on the welcome mat. No postage, no address. Someone had walked right up to their home. Her heart lurched. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was one sentence written in Marcus's precise, elegant handwriting. "You destroyed the order of the Cole family. What I failed to do to Nicholas, I will do to Ethan." Everything inside her froze and burned at the same time. Her first instinct was to run inside, wake Ethan, call security. But something stronger stopped her. A rising fury. A clarity she had never known. He wanted to use her to break Ethan. No, not again. She walked upstairs, letter in hand. Ethan was already awake, sitting on the edge of their bed, elbows on his knees, face in his hands. He hadn't slept much since they found Aiden. The shadows beneath his eyes were bruises of worry and self-blame. When Maya entered, he looked up and froze at the envelope in her hand. "What is that?" She gave it to him silently. Ethan read the words, jaw clenching, until the muscle ticked violently. His entire body went tight, the way a predator coils right before it attacks. He stood slowly, too slowly, as if the earth had tilted under him. "He came to our house. It wasn't a question." Maya nodded. Ethan's voice dropped to a chilling softness. "I'm taking both of you out of the city today, before sunset." Maya stepped closer, setting her hand on his chest. She felt his heart pounding fast, furious, terrified. "No," she whispered. His eyes snapped to hers. "Maya, I'm not running. You think this is about pride?" Ethan's voice cracked raw and desperate. "He wants to break me through you. He's already taken Aiden once. I won't let him near either of you again. You told me family fights together," she said, standing tall, even as fear clawed at her ribs. "I'm holding you to that, Ethan." He stared at her, first furious, then helpless, Then something else entirely. Something that reached deeper than fear. Maya. He swallowed hard. I can't lose you. You won't, she said softly, cupping his face. But if we run, we lose anyway. Ethan's breath trembled, and then he pulled her into his arms, wrapping around her so tightly. She could feel every tremor, every fear he tried so hard to hide. For a long moment, he simply held her. Then very quietly, okay. Together. She nodded against his chest. Together. Night settled heavily over the house. Security had tripled. Every window sealed, every door reinforced, every guard armed. But even with the precautions, Maya couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Aiden clung to her side all evening, sensing the tension, even if he didn't understand it. Ethan stayed near them, every movement sharp with vigilance. His phone never left his hand. His eyes flicked to every shadow, every sound. He was no longer the CEO who commanded boardrooms. He was a father, a protector, a man ready to wage war. But even warlords bleed. Just past midnight, the power flickered. Once, twice, then went out completely. The house fell into darkness. Backup generator should have kicked in. Ethan muttered, grabbing Maya's hand. Stay behind me. Where's Aiden? In his room. Maya stopped. Ethan, wait. But the alarms that should have blared in a power failure stayed silent. Ethan froze. They cut the system. A shadow moved outside the window. Then another. Then a gunshot. Not loud, suppressed, but close. Ethan pushed Maya toward the hallway. Go. Get Aiden. Don't stop for anything. What about go? She ran, heart in her throat. Legs shaking, mind screaming Aiden's name, even before her lips did. Gunfire echoed downstairs. Voices unfamiliar, ruthless shouting orders. She reached Aiden's room just as he sat up in bed, frightened by the noise. Mama, we have to go, Maya whispered, grabbing him and holding him close. Right now. She rushed toward the back stairs, but a figure appeared at the end of the hall. A mask, a gun, moving toward them. Maya clutched Aiden tighter, ducking back into his room and locking the door just as a bullet punched through the wood. Aiden, sweetheart, close your eyes, she whispered, her voice shaking. Mama, I'm scared. It's okay, baby. I've got you. Another bullet. The door cracked. They were trapping her like an animal. She looked around desperately. Window, too high. Closet, nowhere to hide. Footsteps, coming closer. She kissed Aiden's forehead. When I say run, you run to Daddy. Do you hear me? Aiden nodded, tears streaming down his face. The door splintered. Maya, Ethan's voice, down the hall, fierce, terrified. Ethan, she screamed. But before he reached her, a hand clamped over her mouth. A second man burst through the broken doorframe. Aiden screamed. Mommy. Ethan roared, firing down the hallway. Get your hands off her! But one of the intruders grabbed Maya around the waist, yanking her backwards so violently she lost her grip on Aiden. No, she cried, reaching for him. Aiden, Ethan shouted, but they dragged her through the shattered door down a back stairwell into the night. And the last thing she saw was Ethan charging toward her and collapsing to his knees in the hallway, because in the scramble, Maya had dropped her phone. It lay on the floor in front of him. The screen cracked, covered in dust, cold and silent. Maya, Ethan whispered, picking it up with trembling hands. He pressed the broken device to his forehead, breath shattering into ragged pieces. And for the first time in his life, the man who always held himself together let out a sound like something dying inside him. A choking, broken sob, the kind that came from losing the one thing he could not live without. The world came back to Maya in fragments. Concrete, cold metal, the sharp scent of oil and dust. Her wrists were bound. Her mouth tasted like fear. And the man pacing in front of her, Marcus Hale, looked nothing like the calm, meticulous lawyer she'd once passed in the coal hallways. His suit was wrinkled. His eyes, usually so still, burned with something manic and triumphant. They were in an abandoned factory, steel beams rising overhead like ribs of some long-dead creature. Wind hissed through broken windows. A rusted chain clanged somewhere in the cavernous dark. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs, but she held her chin high. She had to think. She had to stall. Ethan would come. He always came. Marcus stopped pacing and crouched in front of her, tilting her chin with 2 fingers. His touch was clinical, detached, like he was examining an object rather than a person. "You're calmer than I expected," he murmured. Maya forced her voice to stay steady. "You want something. Or someone. That's why you kept me alive." Marcus smiled, a thin, chilling curl of his lips. "Nicholas was the one who started this," he said softly. "He exposed the cracks. Disrupted the order I spent decades building." His eyes darkened. He deserved to die. Maya kept her expression neutral, though she wanted to flinch. "And Ethan?" she asked quietly. Marcus rose to his feet, adjusting his jacket. "Ethan inherited the rot. He's loyal to the wrong legacy. He's a threat to everything I've worked for." He leaned in closer, voice dripping with arrogance. "But Aiden." He exhaled slowly, almost reverently. "Aiden is the last asset I don't control." Maya felt ice in her veins. "You will never touch him," she whispered. Marcus's smile sharpened. "Once Ethan is gone, once the Cole legacy collapses, the boy will have nowhere to go. Nowhere but to me." Maya glared at him, hatred burning through her fear. "You don't understand Ethan at all," she said. "He won't stop. Not until he brings you down." Marcus chuckled. "Ethan will come," he said, almost proudly. "I made sure of that." Her heart seized. He wanted Ethan here. He wanted this confrontation. "Maya," Marcus continued, "you and the boy ruined years of work. But you're the thread, the weak spot." His eyes gleamed with cruel intelligence. When something fragile binds a powerful man, it's easy to break him. Just pull. Maya swallowed hard, forcing her voice not to shake. "You're afraid of him." Marcus's smile faltered for one fraction of a second. Then his jaw clenched. "This ends tonight." Ethan was driving like a man possessed. The GPS tracker, the tiny one Maya had stitched into the lining of her necklace months ago, was flashing red on the screen of the SUV. The signal was faint, flickering, but it was enough. "Maya," he whispered, gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles whitened. "Hold on." Beside him sat Nicholas, pale but resolute, strapped into a bulletproof vest he had no business wearing in his condition. "You should be in a hospital," Ethan said. Nicholas shook his head. "I'm finishing what I should have finished years ago." Ethan didn't argue. Behind them, 3 unmarked federal vehicles tailed silently, blue lights off engines, low men inside, armed and ready. It wasn't enough. Ethan could have brought an army, and it still wouldn't feel like enough. His mind kept replaying the sound Maya made when the intruders grabbed her. The fear in her eyes. The broken phone he'd found on the floor. For the first time since childhood, Ethan had fallen to his knees, and he had sworn in that moment that if he got her back, he would never let darkness take her again. Marcus pulled Maya to her feet, tugging her toward the center of the warehouse. A lantern cast long shadows, making him look even more monstrous. He pressed a gun against her ribs. "Last chance," Marcus said. "Where is the evidence Nicholas hid?" Maya met his gaze, unblinking. You'll never find it, Marcus snarled. Then Ethan will die for nothing. A noise echoed in the distance, faint but unmistakable. Car engines. Maya's heartbeat surged. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Well, he murmured, the prince has arrived. He dragged her toward the entrance. The factory door exploded inward. Federal agents stormed through shouting commands. Lights cut through the dust. Concrete shuddered with the force of boots pounding in every direction. And in the chaos, Ethan appeared. He moved like a storm, wild, breathless eyes blazing with terror and fury. Maya. Her breath caught. He was alive. He had come. And he looked like he would burn down the world to reach her. Marcus yanked her closer, gun pressed to her temple. One more step, Marcus hissed, and she dies. Ethan stopped dead. His gun was drawn, but his hands shook just slightly, just enough that Maya saw it. Maya. Ethan breathed, voice cracking. Are you hurt? Before she could answer, Marcus pressed the barrel harder. Ethan's entire body snapped with tension. Let her go. Ethan said the words, vibrating with barely contained violence. This is between you and me. Marcus laughed. No, Ethan. It was always about her. She's your vulnerability, your failure. Ethan's eyes went dark. You don't get to talk about her. Marcus smirked. She broke you. Those words sliced through the room. Something in Ethan broke open. Fear, rage, love all colliding. Maya. Ethan said, voice low, close your eyes. She didn't close them. She looked right at him, right into him, and shook her head. I'm not afraid. That was when Marcus made his mistake. He glanced at her, just long enough for a shadow to move behind him. Nicholas! No, Ethan shouted, but Nicholas had already lunged. He shoved Ethan sideways and the gun fired. The shot cracked like lightning. Nicholas staggered, blood blooming across his shoulder. No! Maya screamed. Federal agents swarmed. Marcus fired again, wild, panicked. Agents tackled him, slamming him to the concrete. His gun skidded away. He screamed like a cornered animal. The coal empire will fall, he shouted as they cuffed him. It will all fall. No one listened. Ethan was already running, not toward Marcus, not toward Nicholas, but toward Maya. She stumbled forward into his arms, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. His hands flew over her arms, her face, her waist, as if checking she was whole. Maya, Maya. His voice was a broken mantra. I've got you. I've got you. She clung to him, breathless, sobbing. I thought. Her voice cracked. I thought you'd die. Ethan framed her face in his hands, pressing his forehead to hers. I thought I'd lost you, he whispered, voice wrecked. I can't live in a world without you. Tears slid down Maya's cheeks. She touched his chest, feeling the frantic thrum of his heart. You didn't lose me, she whispered. You found me. Behind them, medics rushed to Nicholas. He was conscious, grimacing, but alive. When he caught Ethan's eye, he managed a faint, tired smile. Still, protecting you, he rasped. Ethan swallowed hard. Thank you, he whispered, voice breaking. Nicholas nodded toward Maya. Don't waste what you were given. Ethan pulled Maya tight against him again, arms locked around her like she was the only anchor he had left. You're safe, he murmured into her hair. I've got you. I swear, I'll spend the rest of my life keeping you safe. Maya pulled back just enough to see his face. His eyes, usually controlled calm, were rimmed with tears. I love you. Ethan said the words ripped straight from his soul. I love you, Maya. Losing you, it would destroy me. Maya cupped his face with trembling hands. You're not losing me, she said. Not today. Not ever. He kissed her. Then, not gentle, not slow, but desperate, alive, overflowing with everything he almost lost. When their lips broke apart, he held her tight against his chest, her ear pressed over his heart. And for the first time since the nightmare began, Ethan's heartbeat finally slowed, because she was home again. Justice came slowly, and then all at once. Marcus Hale stood trial under federal charges: arson, conspiracy, attempted murder, financial fraud, spanning 2 decades. The courtroom atmosphere was icy, every witness a wound reopened. Ethan attended every hearing, jaw set, Maya by his side, fingers laced through his. When the verdict finally came guilty on all counts, there was no triumph, only release. Lucas, unstable and violent during questioning, was deemed unfit for prison and remanded to a psychiatric facility. When Ethan signed the final document, authorizing the arrangement, his signature trembled only once. Nicholas healed faster than doctors predicted. "You Colemen," the surgeon joked, "are too stubborn to die." Nicholas laughed, but Ethan saw the shadow in his eyes. Survival carried its own scars. Yet piece by piece the fractures of the Cole family knitted together, slowly, carefully, but undeniably. For the first time in years, calm settled over their lives, a fragile, precious thing, like sunlight on still water. Maya suggested a small wedding. Ethan said yes before she finished the sentence. And so one golden afternoon in late spring, friends and family gathered on a quiet stretch of the San Francisco coast. The ceremony took place on a wooden deck overlooking the water, decorated with simple white flowers, candles and glass lanterns, and delicate ribbons that fluttered like soft breaths in the breeze. The ocean murmured in the background, waves rolling in slow, peaceful rhythms, like the world itself was finally exhaling. Maya stood inside a small cottage, just steps from the shore, hands trembling slightly as she held her bouquet. The dress she wore wasn't extravagant, silky, timeless, made with her own hands in the studio. Ethan helped her build. A single ribbon tied at her waist, a soft lace train. She felt beautiful, but she also felt whole. Aiden burst into the room, breathless and beaming, tiny suit slightly crooked. "Mommy," he squealed. "Daddy's waiting, and you look—" He gasped dramatically, eyes wide. "Like a real live angel." Maya's heart melted. She knelt, cupping his cheeks. "And you," she whispered, "are the most handsome ring bearer in the whole universe." He giggled, proud. "Can we go now? Daddy keeps looking at the ocean like he's gonna faint." She laughed despite the tears gathering in her eyes. "Yes, baby, we can go." Outside, Ethan stood beneath the wedding arch, adjusting his tie for the 3rd time. Nicholas watched him with a knowing smile. Nervous. Nicholas teased. Ethan scoffed, but his voice betrayed him. "Should I lie?" Nicholas placed a supportive hand on his shoulder. "She's the best thing that ever happened to you," he said softly. Ethan's eyes softened. "I know. And you're the best thing that ever happened to her," Nicholas added with gentle conviction. For a moment, Ethan's throat tightened. Nicholas wasn't the emotional type, perhaps, because the family had never given him space to be. But now his pride was obvious, shining through the lines of age and pain. The music began, soft strings drifting like wind over water. Ethan looked up, and everything inside him stilled. Maya stepped into the sunlight. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. Not because she looked beautiful, though she did almost unbearably so, but because of what she represented. Hope, courage, a new life, a second chance. His heart thudded painfully as she walked toward him, Aiden hopping beside her, clutching the ring pillow like a treasure. When they reached the arch, Aiden took Ethan's hand and placed Maya's into it, whispering loudly, "Daddy, don't drop it." The guests chuckled. Ethan choked on a laugh and squeezed Maya's fingers, grounding himself in her warmth. The officiant spoke, but Ethan barely heard anything until it was his turn to give his vows. He held Maya's hands. He had practiced a speech neat and polished. But none of those words felt right now. Looking at her with wind catching in her hair, tears shimmering in her eyes, he let his heart speak instead. "Maya," he began quietly, "before you came into my life, I thought I understood strength. A breath. I thought strength meant being untouchable, being cold, surviving alone." Maya's eyes softened, filling with tears. "But then you walked into my world?" Ethan continued, voice shaking, "and showed me strength can also look like kindness, like choosing someone, like protecting a child who wasn't yours because your heart told you it was right." He swallowed. "You didn't just save my son." He paused, emotion catching in his throat. "You saved me, the part of me I thought was long gone." A tear slid down Maya's cheek. "You taught me that a heart can be rebuilt even after it's been broken. And you made mine into a home, a place Aiden can run to, a place I never want to leave." His voice cracked. "I love you more than I have ever loved anything, and I promise to spend the rest of my life proving it." There wasn't a dry eye among the guests. Then it was Maya's turn. Ethan took a shaky breath, preparing himself, but nothing prepared him for the tenderness in her voice. "When I met you, Ethan, I didn't think someone like you could exist," she whispered. "A man who is powerful but gentle, who carries pain but still loves fiercely, who protects his family with everything he has." She smiled through her tears. "You didn't just open your home to me. You opened your heart. And for someone like me who had nothing and no one, that was the greatest gift I could ever receive." Her fingers tightened around his. "You are my safe place, my partner, my beginning, and my second chance at a family." Even the ocean seemed to pause to listen. Nicholas wiped a tear. Aiden clapped enthusiastically, even before the officiant finished saying, "You may kiss the bride." Ethan kissed her like she was the air he'd been starving for. Not rushed, not desperate, but full of reverence, slow, deep, certain. The guests erupted into applause. Aiden threw his arms around both their legs. Finally, he shouted, "My family is complete." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Ethan bent down, lifting Aiden into his arms, as Maya pressed a kiss to the boy's cheek. Nicholas stepped forward, pride shining in his expression, despite the faint scar still visible on his shoulder. "You're glowing, both of you," he said softly. Maya hugged him tightly. "We couldn't have done any of this without you." Ethan placed a hand on Nicholas's back. "You're staying with us. Always." Nicholas smiled, small, sincere, a man who had finally laid down his weapons after years of fighting shadows. The night ended with fireworks, white and gold bursts illuminating the dark sky, reflecting across the waves. Maya leaned against Ethan, barefoot on the sand. Aiden curled between them. The sea breeze tangled her hair, but she didn't mind. Ethan wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pressing a soft kiss to her temple. She closed her eyes, sinking into the warm solidity of him. "I never thought I'd feel peace again," Ethan murmured against her hair. Maya intertwined their fingers. "You deserve it." He exhaled long and slow. For the first time in years, he believed it. Aiden nuzzled into them, whispering sleepily, "This is my favorite day ever." Maya kissed the top of his head. Ethan held them both closer. Fireworks bloomed above them, lighting the night with hope. And for the first time in his life, Ethan Cole wasn't bracing for darkness. He wasn't running from ghosts or shadows. He was here, with his wife, with his son, with the family he thought he would never have. A healed family, a chosen family, a family that had survived fire, betrayal, and blood, and finally found peace.